Lucas Montenegro walked briskly through the marble lobby of his company. The shine of the floor reflected his custom-made Italian suit. His firm steps echoed like the soundtrack of his own life, marked by power and haste. He never looked at anything that fell below the line of his ambition. At the main entrance, a group of street children held out their hands, asking for coins. Among them was Sophia, just 9 years old, wearing torn clothes and with a hungry look in her eyes. "Mister, can you help me buy some bread?" she asked, timidly but persistently. Lucas didn't even slow down. The tinted window of his Ferrari reflected his indifferent face. As the driver started the car, Lucas scrolled through his phone, reviewing numbers from a multi-million-dollar deal. To him, those children were just part of the urban landscape, like lampposts or traffic lights. Sophia, however, kept watching him with a penetrating gaze that seemed to see beyond his arrogance. The contrast between the world of skyscrapers and the sidewalk where Sophia slept was striking. Lucas walked into rooms filled with luxury and air conditioning, while the little girl huddled against the cold night wind. For her, life was hunger and uncertainty. For him, it was all about charts and profits. Despite his tough exterior, Lucas carried invisible scars, the fear of losing everything he had built. He trusted no one, not even his own business partners. But he could never have imagined that the little girl he ignored every day would turn out to be the key to his survival. That morning, Lucas was already irritated by delays in a crucial meeting. "No one keeps me waiting," he muttered as he stepped into the elevator. Outside, Sophia was trying to sell candy to the security guards, who harshly shooed her away. Fate, however, was preparing an inevitable encounter. At the top floor, Lucas was greeted with flattery. Everyone knew about his explosive temper and made sure to keep up appearances. His partner, Enrique Vasconcelos, elegant and smiling, waited for him with a freshly prepared cup of coffee. The aroma was strong and inviting. As Lucas adjusted his tie in the mirror, Sophia approached the building. She had seen something no one else noticed. Enrique discreetly pouring a small vial into the coffee. Her heart raced, but her childlike courage wouldn't let her stay silent. With quick steps, Sophia managed to slip past security and climb the service stairs. Her ragged breathing mixed with the fear of being caught. But deep inside, she knew she had to stop Lucas from drinking that coffee. The moment Lucas reached for the cup, the doors to the meeting room burst open. A child's voice, desperate and clear, echoed among the suited executives. "Don't eat that dessert! Don't drink that coffee!" And if you also believe that a simple act can change an entire destiny, subscribe now so you don't miss inspiring stories like this one.
Everyone turned in shock toward the small intruder. Sophia stood there breathless, her hair messy and clothes dirty. Her eyes shone with urgency. "He put poison in it! I saw him!" she shouted, pointing at Enrique, who was forcing a smile. An uncomfortable murmur spread through the room. Lucas felt his blood boil. How had that street kid gotten in here? His face turned red with embarrassment in front of his colleagues. "Someone get this child out of here," he ordered, trying to keep his composure. But Sophia's words had planted a seed of doubt. Enrique stood up, outraged. "This is ridiculous. That little beggar must be delirious. How did she even get in here?" he said dramatically, trying to divert attention from the coffee. Yet his eyes shone with a flicker of nervousness. The security guards moved in to drag Sophia away, but she clung to the conference table. "I saw him messing with the coffee. He had a little bottle. I swear," she insisted, her voice trembling but firm. The silence that followed felt heavier than any accusation. Lucas stared at Enrique for a second. Something in his expression seemed off. Then he looked at Sophia. Dirty, hungry, but certain. The memory of her daily pleas at the entrance crossed his mind. For the first time, he hesitated. "Leave the cup here," Lucas commanded, raising his hand to stop anyone from removing it. "We'll have it tested." A wave of shock filled the room. Enrique tried to protest, but Lucas's icy glare silenced him. Sophia sighed in relief. Still, the guards kept her surrounded as if she were a criminal. Uncomfortable with the scene, Lucas asked them to at least let her stand freely for a moment. The meeting, which was supposed to be about million-dollar investments, now revolved around a cup of coffee and a street child. The luxury of the room felt fragile in the face of possible betrayal. Enrique composed himself and forced a smile. "This is a ridiculous circus, Lucas. You're not seriously listening to this kid." But Lucas didn't answer. His eyes remained fixed on the cup, as if it were the center of the universe. From the back of the room, Sophia whispered almost inaudibly, but with the strength that echoed in Lucas's heart, "If you drink it, you'll die."
Lucas stared at the cup as if it were a bomb about to explode. His rational instinct told him not to believe the girl, but there was something in her eyes that felt undeniably true. "Take this to the lab, now," he said coldly, handing the cup to a trusted security guard. Enrique tried to hide his tension. "Lucas, this is a waste of time. We're losing precious minutes." His voice sounded irritated, but underneath lay a thread of panic. Sophia stood firm, her eyes locked on him, like someone who had just revealed a secret she knew was real. The next few minutes felt heavy. The meeting came to a standstill. Executives whispered among themselves, and Sophia remained under watch. Lucas, restless, paced around the room with his hands in his pockets. For the first time in years, he felt like he wasn't in control of his own surroundings. When the results came in, the room fell completely silent. The report confirmed it. The coffee had been laced with a highly lethal substance. A chill ran down Lucas's spine. He had almost died right in front of everyone, and a street kid was the only reason he was still alive. Lucas's eyes met Enrique's. His partner's mask of confidence was starting to crack. Still, Enrique tried to keep up appearances. "This is a setup. Someone's trying to frame me." But no one seemed convinced. Sophia let out a triumphant sigh, but quickly realized her own life was now in danger. If Enrique had tried to kill Lucas, why would he spare a girl who had witnessed everything? Still in shock, Lucas realized the same thing. Her presence was uncomfortable, but necessary. He couldn't ignore that Sophia was the only eyewitness, and that made her an immediate target for Enrique's rage. The executives, clearly uncomfortable, asked to end the meeting. Some left the room quickly, as if they didn't want to be associated with a potential scandal. The business atmosphere had vanished, replaced by fear and distrust. Enrique approached Lucas, speaking quietly. "You have no idea who you're messing with." The threatening tone was a clear message. Lucas's power was no longer enough to protect him. As Enrique left the room, Lucas's eyes returned to Sophia. For the first time, he truly saw her, not as a nuisance at the company's door, but as the small voice that had kept him alive. Down in the underground parking garage, Lucas walked quickly toward his Ferrari. His mind was racing. Betrayal, conspiracy, danger. Sophia followed closely, guarded by security, unsure whether she'd be cast aside or protected. Inside the car, the silence was sharp. Sophia sat with her hands in her lap, staring out the window at the lit-up streets. Finally, she broke the silence. "They're coming after me now, aren't they?" Her voice was fragile, but steady. Lucas glanced at her. There was no easy answer. "You saw something you weren't supposed to," he admitted, straight to the point. It was the first time he had spoken to her directly, without ignoring her existence. Suddenly, two black cars appeared in the rearview mirror. A chill ran down Lucas's spine. He knew right away this wasn't a coincidence. The chase had begun. He slammed his foot on the accelerator and the Ferrari roared through the nighttime streets. Sophia held onto her seat, her heart racing. "They want to kill me," she cried out in panic. Lucas, eyes fixed on the road, replied coldly, "They want to kill us." For the first time, he included himself alongside her in the danger. The car weaved through the streets, but the pursuers didn't give up. Lucas used all his driving skills to shake them off, running red lights and cutting through narrow alleys. The contrast between the luxury car and the desperate escape felt surreal. Finally, after swerving sharply into a poorly lit area, Lucas found a narrow entrance leading into the favela. The pursuers hesitated to follow, giving him a moment to lose them. The red Ferrari came to a stop in front of a cluster of makeshift houses. Barefoot children stared in amazement at the shiny car that had no business being there. To Lucas, this was an unknown world. To Sophia, it was home. "Are you safe here?" Lucas asked, still catching his breath. Sophia smiled faintly, despite her fear. "Safer than you are." For the first time, she had the upper hand on her own turf. As the city lights glowed in the distance, Lucas realized his life had changed forever. The arrogant billionaire was now hiding in a place where money meant nothing, and the only person who knew how to survive there was the girl he'd always ignored. The red Ferrari parked at the edge of the favela looked like a jewel out of place. The engine's rumble echoed through the narrow alleyways, drawing everyone's attention. Children ran around curiously, while adults watched with suspicion. For many, it was the first time they'd seen a luxury car up close. Lucas turned off the engine and took a deep breath. For the first time in years, he felt vulnerable. His money, his reputation, his power, none of it mattered here. The billionaire used to calling the shots now depended on the instincts of a 9-year-old girl. Sophia, on the other hand, was completely at ease. She hopped out of the car with agility and waved at familiar faces. "This is where I live," she said, pointing to a shack pieced together with wooden planks and rusty sheets of metal. Lucas shivered at the contrast with his mansions and luxurious offices. The suspicious glances grew more intense. A muscular man with crossed arms stepped forward. "What's this rich boy doing here, Sophia?" he asked with disdain. Lucas felt the hostility in the air, but stayed quiet, watching. Sophia stepped between them as if defending an ally. "He helped me. He's with me." The simplicity of her words seemed to be enough. The man backed off, still wary, but didn't push further. For the first time, Lucas was being protected by someone who had nothing to lose. Walking into the shack, Lucas was stunned. The dirt floor, the torn-up mattress, and the few belongings spoke of a life of extreme hardship. Sophia, however, acted completely natural. "Have a seat," she said, pointing to a broken chair. He obeyed silently, thinking about the brutal contrast between their lives. "You live like this every day?" he asked, almost unable to believe it. Sophia just shrugged. "It's life, better than starving on the street." Outside, people were talking about the billionaire's arrival. News traveled fast among the residents. For some, it was a curiosity. For others, a danger. Lucas knew their hiding spot wouldn't last long. Still, as he looked at Sophia, something shifted inside him. For the first time, he didn't see her as a nuisance outside his company's doors, but as someone offering him unlikely shelter in the middle of chaos. Morning came with the sound of radios playing, children running barefoot, and makeshift vendors shouting prices. Lucas woke up in Sophia's shack, uncomfortable but curious. It was a whole new world, and he felt like a foreigner in his own city. Sophia was already up, organizing small bags. "I'm going to get bread," she said cheerfully. Lucas watched her leave, noticing how everyone greeted her with affection. Despite the poverty, she had something he'd never truly had, a sense of belonging.
As they walked through the favela, Lucas saw how hard life was here. Children asked for coins, women carried buckets of water, men argued on street corners. The smell of cheap food mixed with open sewage. To him, it was a brutal reality check. But Sophia showed him every detail with pride. "This is the field where we play soccer," she said, pointing to a patch of bare dirt. "Over there sells the best pastels in the world." Her eyes shone as if she were describing magical places. Lucas, used to international trips and Michelin-starred restaurants, couldn't understand how anyone could smile amid so much hardship. Yet there was something genuine in her simple happiness that disarmed him. Suddenly a boy came running up. "Sophia, I heard some guys in a black car were asking about you." Lucas's heart raced. The threat wasn't over. Enrique's reach extended even here. Sophia frowned, but stayed calm. "We need to hide better," she said, grabbing Lucas's hand. He let himself be led, feeling for the first time truly dependent on someone so small. They slipped into a narrow alley, moving through passageways Lucas never imagined he'd walk. Every step reminded him that his power meant nothing here. His only compass was Sophia.
At the end of the path, they reached an abandoned house. "Nobody looks for anyone here," the girl said, smiling confidently. Lucas watched her, impressed. For the first time, he understood that his survival might depend less on his wealth and more on the courage of this little girl. As he settled into their makeshift hiding place, Lucas reflected. His entire life, built on luxury and arrogance, was now in the hands of a child who had never owned anything. And that scared him more than any pursuer. The silence of the abandoned house was broken only by the constant dripping of a leaky pipe. Lucas paced back and forth, unable to rest. The image of Enrique smiling falsely as he poisoned him wouldn't leave his mind. Sophia, leaning against the wall, watched him quietly. Her young eyes noticed something adults often missed. Behind Lucas's coldness was fear. She approached him and said, "He's not just your enemy. He must have hated you for a long time." The girl's words struck deep. Lucas remembered the early years of the company when he and Enrique shared dreams and ambitions. Slowly, that friendship had turned into silent rivalry, fueled by envy and power. As Lucas was lost in thought, his phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number appeared. "You should have drunk the coffee. There's still time to fix this." The warning was clear. They knew where he was and were willing to finish the job. The weight of the betrayal was beginning to feel heavier than he'd imagined. It wasn't just Enrique. There was something much bigger behind it, a network of interests willing to destroy him. Sophia noticed the tension on his face. "You're not used to not being in control, are you?" Lucas offered a bitter smile. "No. And you're not used to having someone try to kill you for money." Sophia shrugged, unfazed. "On the street, someone tries every day. The difference is, no one cares." The harshness of her words hit him like a punch. For the first time, Lucas understood that the danger he was facing was just a luxury version of what Sophia lived through daily. Death was stalking them both, only the address was different. As the night wore on, Lucas decided to act. "If Enrique wants me dead, there must be a reason. I'm going to find out." His determined look revealed a shift. It wasn't just fear anymore, but a thirst for answers. Sophia, just as determined, crossed her arms. "Then I'm coming with you. If I saved you once, I can save you again." Lucas looked at her, surprised by her boldness. Inside, a new feeling emerged. Maybe, for the first time, he wasn't alone. The next day, Lucas reached out to Marina, his trusted assistant. They met at a discreet cafe, far from corporate eyes. Marina seemed nervous, glancing around before sitting down. "You shouldn't be here, Lucas. They're hunting you."
Lucas got straight to the point. "Enrique tried to kill me. I want to know what you know." Marina hesitated, biting her lower lip. Sophia, standing beside him, watched silently but with the sharpness of someone who knew how to recognize fear. Finally, Marina lowered her voice. "Enrique isn't acting alone. He's part of an organization. Big players, politicians, business leaders, judges. They want you out of the way because you refuse to play by their rules." Lucas's heart raced. It was worse than he'd imagined. This wasn't just personal betrayal, it was a network eating away at the whole country. Sophia gently squeezed his arm, as if to say they were in this storm together. Marina handed him a flash drive. "This contains documents that prove some of his involvement, but if you use this, you're declaring war." Lucas held the device as if it were a weapon, fully aware of the power it carried. Sophia, curious, asked, "What if everyone found out at once? They wouldn't be able to hide it." Lucas and Marina exchanged glances, surprised by the simplicity of her idea. The girl's innocence pointed toward the most obvious solution: total exposure. Still, the danger was growing. Marina revealed she'd already received threats for being too close to Lucas. "If they find out I'm helping you, there'll be nothing left of me." Her eyes welled up, but her mind was made up. She had chosen his side. Lucas, moved, took a deep breath. For the first time, he felt he had real allies, even in the middle of chaos. Sophia smiled proudly, as if she were an essential part of this new circle of trust. But before they could make a plan, a black car parked across the street. Armed men stepped out, alert and focused. Time was up. "They already know," Marina whispered. Lucas stood up, took Sophia's hand, and murmured, "Now the real fight begins." The city streets became an invisible battlefield. Wherever they went, Lucas felt the organization's eyes on them. Black cars appeared at corners, strangers watched from a distance, and every move seemed monitored. The once untouchable billionaire was now the prey. Sophia, though scared, stayed calm. Her life on the streets had taught her to notice unusual movements. "They're closing in on us, but they always leave an opening," she said, pulling Lucas through alleyways he would never have dared enter alone. Marina, growing more involved, used her contacts to try and throw their pursuers off track. But with every move, it seemed there was a mole closer than they thought. "They have people everywhere," she warned, checking their surroundings nervously. That night, a direct attack came. 2 cars blocked the exit of an alley as they were walking. Armed men stepped out, ready to end the hunt. Lucas felt his heart pound, but Sophia reacted first.
The girl threw a rock at one of the car windows, distracting the henchmen. "Run!" she yelled, pulling Lucas by the hand. The billionaire, who used to command hundreds of employees, was now taking orders from a child. The escape was intense. Climbing makeshift stairs, jumping over low walls, and squeezing through tight alleyways, Lucas realized that physical strength was no match for lack of practice. Gasping for air, he almost fell, but Sophia pushed him forward, saving him once again. When they finally reached a makeshift hiding spot, Marina was waiting for them. "You almost died!" she exclaimed, tears of relief in her eyes. Lucas looked at Sophia and realized that without her, he wouldn't have survived that night. The billionaire's pride was beginning to crumble. For the first time, he felt genuine gratitude. "You've got more courage than most people I've ever met," he told Sophia. The girl smiled, tired but satisfied. However, the pursuit wouldn't stop. The organization was determined to silence them at any cost. Lucas knew he couldn't hide forever. He had to confront Enrique head-on. As the distant sound of sirens echoed, Lucas made a decision. If he wanted to survive, he'd have to turn his wealth into a weapon against his enemy. The hunt was only just beginning. Back in the hideout, Lucas stared at the flash drive Marina had given him. It contained enough evidence to expose Enrique and part of the criminal network, but releasing it would mean declaring war on people far more powerful than he'd ever imagined. Sophia, sitting on the floor, played with an old can as if it were a toy. "Why don't you just show everyone? They won't be able to hide," she said with a child's simplicity. Yet her words rang true. Marina shook her head.
If we do that now, they'll come after us without rest. We need a plan, or Sophia will pay the price." Her gaze fixed on the girl, making it clear that the child was now at the center of this war. Lucas felt the crushing weight of the decision. For the first time, his mind wasn't just calculating profits or financial losses. Sophia's life was at stake, the only person who had shown him humanity in days. He walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. His fortune had built skyscrapers, but now it seemed useless against the risk of losing a child who shouldn't even be in his life. The dilemma ate at his soul: save himself or protect her. Sophia, sensing his silence, walked over and took his hand. "If you do nothing, they win. But if you do something, I'll stand by you." The simple gesture broke through the armor of arrogance Lucas had carried for so long. He looked into her eyes and saw something he'd never found in partners or executives: true loyalty. A girl with nothing was offering everything she had: her courage.
Taking a deep breath, Lucas made his decision. "I won't turn you in. If I have to, I'll risk everything. But we're going to fight." His firm voice even surprised himself. Marina, relieved, nodded. "Then we need to act first, before Henrique figures out our next move." The mood shifted. They were no longer just fugitives. They were players ready to turn the game around. In that moment, Lucas Montenegro stopped being just a cornered billionaire. He became a man willing to sacrifice his fortune, his reputation, and even his own life to protect the girl he used to ignore every day. Back in the hideout, Marina spread out some documents from the flash drive across the table. Numbers, names, and codes blended together in complex charts. Lucas tried to make sense of it all, but the mess seemed deliberately confusing. It was Sophia who stepped closer, curious, and pointed out a detail. "Look, this shape keeps repeating," she said, showing a strange symbol printed on several pages. Lucas frowned. It was the disguised logo of a shell company Henrique used. No analyst had ever noticed it. The girl's innocence, free from corporate arrogance, had revealed a crucial clue. "You just found the key to the whole scheme," Lucas admitted, amazed. Sophia smiled proudly, not fully grasping the importance of what she'd discovered. Marina confirmed that the symbol linked Henrique directly to fraudulent government contracts. "If this gets out, the whole network collapses," she explained. But at the same time, the risk grew. They now had definitive proof in their hands. Lucas, impressed, looked at Sophia with genuine respect. "You have eyes that see what no one else does." Shyly, the girl replied, "On the street, if you don't notice everything, you don't survive." The weight of the revelation settled over them. The evidence was strong, but to use it, they'd need a way to make it public without it being suppressed. Henrique had allies in every institution. As they debated, Sophia stood up and drew an improvised map of the favela on the floor. "If we tell the people here first, they'll spread the word fast. Then the whole city will know." Her childlike logic had power. Start with the people, not the corrupt authorities. Lucas thought it over. For years, he'd looked down on those very people. Now he saw in them a chance to turn the tables. "Maybe that's exactly what we need," he admitted. The decision was made. The power he'd always ignored would be what gave him a voice against Henrique. And the girl he'd never looked at twice was the one guiding him toward the truth.
The plan started that very same night. Lucas, Marina, and Sophia gathered residents of the favela in a makeshift warehouse. Using an old projector, they showed documents and evidence linking Henrique to corrupt contracts. Outraged, people began recording with their phones. Within hours, videos were spreading across social media. The story exploded like wildfire. Street girl uncovers billion-dollar conspiracy. Lucas's name appeared in headlines, not as the arrogant CEO, but as someone exposing a rotten system.
Enrique, furious, reacted immediately. He ordered the destruction of the equipment in the warehouse and threatened community leaders. They think they can expose us? I'll end every last one of them. His coldness showed just how far he was willing to go. Marina, frightened, warned, "The organization will strike back fast. We need to be ready." Lucas knew every minute counted. The war was no longer behind the scenes. It had gone public. Sophia, despite her fear, stood firm. "If everyone knows, they can't silence us." Her voice echoed like a banner of hope amid the chaos. Even Lucas was surprised by the courage of this little warrior. The impact was so big that international news outlets began investigating. The criminal network, once protected by silence, started to crack. But Enrique wouldn't give up without a fight. That night, Lucas received an anonymous call. "Either you make that girl disappear, or you'll watch her die right in front of you." The message was clear. Sophia was the main target. Lucas hung up with a heavy heart. For the first time, he realized this was no longer just a power struggle. It was a fight for the life of a child who had become family. And deep down, Lucas knew the exposure was only the first blow. The war was far from over. The early hours of the morning hung heavy over the city. Lucas and Marina were organizing new contacts to spread the evidence further, while Sophia, exhausted, dozed off in a corner. The mood was tense, but there was hope in the air, until everything fell apart. A loud crash echoed from outside the warehouse. Doors were kicked in, and armed men stormed the place. Within seconds, chaos took over. Marina yelled for Lucas to run, but the billionaire was already grabbing Sophia by the shoulders, trying to shield her. Enrique walked in last, a cold smile on his face. "Did you really think you could take me down, Lucas? You're nothing but a pawn who forgot who runs the game." His cruel gaze fixed on Sophia.
The henchmen closed in on the group. Lucas, unarmed, tried to reason with them. "Leave the girl out of this, Enrique. She has nothing to do with our fight." But Enrique just laughed. "She's the key to everything. As long as she's alive, she's a threat." Sophia was trembling, but she didn't cry. Her eyes met Enrique's with surprising courage. "You're afraid of me because you know I saw who you really are," she said, her voice steady. The child's words threw the villain off balance for a moment. A fight was inevitable. Lucas tried to resist, but he was quickly overpowered. Marina tried to help, but was shoved against the wall. In the end, Enrique got what he wanted. He captured Sophia. As they dragged her away, Lucas screamed her name in desperation. "Sophia!" But the henchmen held him back, and Enrique disappeared with the girl into the darkness of the night. On his knees, exhausted and defeated, Lucas felt the weight of loss crushing his soul. For the first time, he realized just how much that little girl meant to him. Sophia wasn't just a witness anymore. She was like a daughter to him. In that dark moment, he made a vow to himself. He would do whatever it took to get her back, even if it meant facing hell itself. The abandoned warehouse was shrouded in shadows when Lucas arrived. He'd managed to track Enrique there, thanks to information Marina risked her life to get. The place smelled of rust and old oil, like a scene straight out of a nightmare. In the center of the space, Sophia was tied to a chair. Her eyes lit with hope when she saw Lucas enter. Enrique emerged from the darkness with a venomous smile. "Here to turn yourself in? How touching!" Lucas, unarmed, knew he couldn't win by force, but he carried something more powerful, a plan. As he spoke with Enrique, he secretly live-streamed everything to the press using a hidden micro device. "You never just wanted the company, Enrique.
You wanted to destroy everything I stood for, Lucas accused. Enrique laughed. It was never about you. It's about power. You were in the way. Now you'll just be another forgotten corpse. The henchman moved forward, but Marina stepped in, armed and determined. Nobody touches her, she yelled, pointing at Sofia. The betrayal by his former ally made Enrique lose control. The fight was intense. Lucas faced Enrique in a brutal physical clash. Punches echoed through the empty warehouse, each blow fueled by years of hatred and resentment. Sofia cried, begging him to hold on. When all seemed lost, Lucas remembered the promise he made to protect Sofia at cost. Using his own weakness as a strategy, he lured Enrique close and managed to take him down with an unexpected move.
Marina freed Sofia, who ran straight into Lucas's arms. The relief was overwhelming, but the danger wasn't over yet. Enrique, bloodied and beaten, was still trying to get up. That's when sirens echoed from outside. The live broadcast had worked. Police stormed the warehouse, rounding up the henchmen. Enrique, defeated, was handcuffed in front of the cameras. For the first time, the whole world saw the true face of their enemy. With Sofia clinging tightly to him, Lucas felt he had finally won. Not just the war against Enrique, but the battle against his own arrogance. For the first time in a long time, he felt like a whole man. The next morning, the sun rose gently over a city still reeling from the night's revelations. Headlines screamed, "Criminal network exposed after explosive whistleblowing." Lucas Montenegro's name, once associated with arrogance and luxury, was now linked to courage and justice. Enrique was behind bars, exposed before all his accomplices. Politicians, judges, and business leaders fell like dominoes. The criminal network, once untouchable, began to crumble. Lucas knew the fight against corruption wasn't over, but the first step had been taken. In the favela, the red Ferrari no longer turned heads. What really surprised people was seeing Lucas walking among the residents, humility now in his eyes. He talked, he helped, he listened to their stories. He was no longer the man who drove by with his windows up. He was someone willing to make a difference. Sofia ran among the other children, laughing like never before. She was no longer just the street kid begging for coins. She was the heroine who had saved a billionaire and helped bring down an empire of corruption. Her life was changing, but her heart remained the same, brave and generous. Lucas decided to use part of his fortune to create social projects in the community: schools, sports centers, health clinics. For the first time, he was investing in something that didn't bring financial returns, but transformed lives. "If I'd done this sooner, maybe I would have saved myself earlier," he confessed to Marina. Reporters reached out to him, but he turned down flashy interviews. "The story isn't about me," he'd say. "It's about her." And he'd point to Sofia, who watched him with proud eyes. The girl he used to ignore every day was now his greatest reason to live. One calm afternoon, they sat side by side on top of a hill. The city stretched out before them, its skyscrapers glimmering in the distance. "You've changed," Sofia said simply. Lucas smiled, emotional. "You changed me." He promised her she would never be alone again. Sofia, her eyes shining, replied, "And you'll never forget to look down again." Her light laughter echoed like music, lifting the weight of everything they'd been through. As the wind blew and the future opened up before them, Lucas realized the greatest lesson of his life. It wasn't his wealth that made him powerful. It was the humanity he had rediscovered in the eyes of a child. And so, in the heart of the favela where his Ferrari had once stopped, a new story was born. Not one of arrogance and power, but of redemption and hope. Just like Lucas learned that true wealth lies in our humanity, you too can change the way you see the world.
Subscribe now and keep following stories that will truly touch your heart.